So it's 9 o'clock and we are starting this. Did I start? Yeah, I did. Okay. We get started here. Couple things. Obviously, I have had a couple people take the test, and so they have done well without the review. So this is kind of just to clean some things up for you and make sure you guys understand anything. And just kind of in the kind of end our semester, right? I know so about 30 of you guys have decided to come back in the spring. So obviously, I look forward to meeting you. Hopefully, you did get my class. I have no idea. They're still moving people around, moving things around. So I don't have any answers for you guys when it comes to, hey, am I going to be in your class? Am I going to be where? Unfortunately, I don't know yet. Again, we have tons of students coming back, not just in my class, but many other classes. They have to juggle a lot of schedules. Um, Obviously, try to make sure they put you guys in the best spot to be successful and make sure they'll try their best to put you with the same teacher. Again, no guarantees because I don't know exactly what all they have to do, but I'm sure it's a lot of work and they're going to do what's best for you and try to put you in the best position to continue with your teacher. Can't guarantee that. I don't know how that's going to work, but I want to kind of give you an update on that. The next thing is, remember, guys, anything you remember, I gave you guys till December 12th to turn things in late, which is like 8 more days than FBA allows. So anything that you've turned in after the 12th, I'm not going to count. Okay. So just be aware of that. I give you plenty of time. I give you 8 extra days. Some of you guys turned in some stuff late over the weekend. I did count that yet Monday, but anything from here on out that you turn in, I am not going to count. All right. And I mean, I made that pretty clear, giving you extra 8 days. So I think that's pretty fair. Let's see, anything else I've looked at. The tests are fair. People have gone through it. Again, no one's going to get the same test. You got 60 minutes to complete it. And that's really it. Do you guys have any questions right off the bat before I get started? One thing. If you guys are out and about, like anywhere, so there's about 163 of you. I don't know how many are on here today. If you're out and about and you happen to see a PS5, if you could pick one of those up and I will reimburse you. All right. I think my wife's on every single website, every single app trying to find one of those. But if you happen to stumble across one and you want to be generous and buy it and I'll reimburse you for it, that would be awesome. Okay. Is anybody else parents looking for one of those and can't find them? It's like the new hot toy. So I remember back in like I know you're like 1900s. Wow, that's long. I'm sorry, it was 2000. It was like 98, 99, 2000, somewhere right there. The big toy, believe it or not, was called Tickle Me Elmo. Yep. It's sad that people are scalping them. So barely enter in stock. Yeah, I know. Some people have like 20 and 30. They're trying to sell for like $2,000 on eBay. Let me tell you something. I'm not buying anything like that for $2,000. Yeah. But the big one was the Elmo called it's the doll called Tickle Me Elmo, and literally like it just sat there and went like it just laughed, right? And I was like, I cannot believe people are selling these for like $200-300 doing the same thing, the scalping deal. But yeah, it was a big toy. You couldn't find them anywhere. They're flying off the shelves. And now we progressed 20 years later and everybody's PlayStation 5. So there's always that hot toy every year, and so that's the deal. And my son's birthday happens to be on the day after Christmas, so he does like a dual deal. So every year he kind of gets gypped with Christmas, okay, or his birthday. So this year we said, hey, we're going to give him something different, and we normally don't buy him things like this, but after 12 years, we decided, hey, we're going to buy him one of those. So if you find one, let me know. Okay, so let me turn something off, and you guys, if you got any questions, go type them in real quick, okay? And I'm back. Any questions you have? Any questions? Questions. Again, if you got personal questions you need to ask me. I am basically sitting here by myself because obviously all the high schools have moved to online as well. It is what it is. All right. Questions? Well, before we get started, hopefully you guys have already looked over this PDF. So this will be kind of quick. And then I'm going to add the law of the sea today too, because that's what I really wanted to do on Monday. But since Monday was what it was, we did not get a chance to do that. So I'm going to do the law of the sea. So somebody just give me a yes. I see this unit.
Yes.
Right. I heard somebody. Perfect. So kind of going along, I know it says 1 through 3. It's actually 1 through 5. So I just haven't changed that. But that's okay. All right, Unit 1, thinking geographically. So the big thing is to remember place, human physical characteristics, location. If we talk about, a mountain, that's not really when we talk about the place, okay? The place is something we've added, some sort of a human physical characteristic. How can we perceive the area based on beliefs or events from our life? So knowing what a place is. Now, the sense of place is an area where it's how we perceive something, okay? And usually I do a mental map of the area, and it says the first week of school, but you guys, we didn't do that. Okay, it's just kind of mentally drawing a map and seeing, hey, what is that? What does it mean? How do I perceive the area? Okay. And then physical geography, you guys are very familiar with that. That's what you've done over the past years. The human geography is how we interact with our space and the characteristics of that space. We looked at population already. We looked at culture. We haven't looked at economics yet, but we will. Urban, we haven't done that yet, but we just did politics, okay? We look at these patterns and processes. Patterns are how things are arranged, and processes how they get there. So this is sequence, which we talked about, sequence occupants, the order in which people occupy a place. Okay, somebody, I need to go in here. Give me 1 second, guys. Somebody needs to turn their microphone off for me. So if you're that person, let me go in here and mute all. Let me see where it is. So they've changed all these settings too. So let me. All right, if that's you, if you'll just mute yourself, that'd be great, please. Everybody just check their button so they can be muted. Just makes it easier for me. All right, and so next thing is maps, information, relation between places. It can be reference or thematic, and then map projections are the way that they project 2D, 3D information onto 2D surfaces, okay? And then you got scale of analysis. This is the big thing we always use. Depending on the scale, it can drastically change your answer, your viewpoint, right? Scale, geography, you got global, regional, national, state, and local. All of these scales, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, can change your point of view. Your types of regions were formal to define, perceptual vernacular, what people think, and then functional is your service area. Okay. Remember to understand what a projection is. When you talk about projections, Mercator, Robinson, and those, those you just kind of got to look over again. And those are pretty simple if you go back to the PowerPoint. Hey, guys, somebody still got theirs not muted. Can you please do that for me? Okay. Then we looked at population and migration. Okay, population. If you want to click on this right here, it's just that information of the world population. And then there's the factors that influence people living in the world today: physical, cultural, economics, and we just did those a second ago. The Ecumene is a portion of Earth where humans settle permanently. And then a lot of places we do not settle is areas that are too hot, too cold, which are usually too hot, too wet, usually low, or too dry. Okay, now this is based on environmental determinism. Today, though, through obviously our word possibilism, we actually can overcome some of those places, okay? Then we look at densely populated areas tend to be with this urban space, the city. Okay, we've talked about this a lot, especially every time we do dense populations. When you see something where there's a dense population, they tend to be a city. And we looked at this thing called the electorate. Okay, they just did the electoral college and all that. The reason why places like New York, okay, the state of New York, have a lot of votes is because New York City is very densely populated. They build so high up, and almost each building tends to be its zip code almost. If you know that 9/11, where the Twin Towers used to be, that was its own zip code. Those two buildings had its own zip code. So many people were populated in the area. And then we talk about sparsely populated areas tend to be the rural space. Then your types of density and calculation, right? Arithmetic people, physiological people on arable land, and agricultural density farmers per arable land. Okay, this tends to be in your more LDCs. Your less developed countries tend to have more farmers per arable land, and these other ones could vary. But one of the main things when you're doing that is always remembering that the carrying capacity is how many people the land can support. Okay, densely populated areas that don't put much stress on the land because of this thing called central place theory, and we'll talk about that later on. Okay, population pyramids, understanding, the stages. Right down here, we got high birth rate, high death rate. Okay, and we see here, so that means their population is growing quickly. Okay, and this right here, stage 2. Remember, these coincide with the demographic transition model, which should be on the next slide. Perfect. All right. We can understand expansive. We can start seeing here, understanding the fact that there's a dependency ratio. The number 65 and up and 15 and below are dependent on the people in the middle that are working. So you got to understand that. And this just kind of gives us an idea of how populations are shifting. And sometimes there will be anomalies, which we don't have on here, but let's say all of a sudden you see this right here, it kind of goes up, and it goes really far in right here, and then back out. That could be, if we look back in the 1950s, it could be, depending on the age of the person, it could be a war, okay? You could also see maybe some sort of a growth. Maybe it goes like this, it's really low here, and all of a sudden, 18 to 24, 18 to 29 kind of comes out here, and then kind of pyramid starts going back. Maybe it's a college town for both sides. It could be like Alaska that looks something like this, looks pretty normal like this, actually like this. But then you go to a local level, like Alouette County, which was the deadliest catch, would look something like this. It's like not very many kids, and all of a sudden we kind of go out here with males till they're about 45 and come back, and then the female side looks more like this, right? Not many here because this tends to be a male-dominated job, and women are smarter than us, and they don't want to live in Alaska, okay? So a lot of things you can check from there, okay? What's going on either way? You got baby boom, male-dominated jobs, one-child law, college town, lack of jobs, and any other anomalies may kind of be shown from there, okay? The demographic transition model, this is just basically showing our birth rate, death rate, and how we do our natural increase through total population growth, okay? All right? So population over time is really your biggest explanation. The stable, slow, very rapid. Most countries today are going to be here. Okay, there are still a lot of countries here. There are no states or countries in stage 1. There might be areas like for tribes, so you may see that somewhere. Okay. The epidemiological transition model pretty much follows this in line. Okay. So stage 1 is pestilence and famine. We don't see very much of that as far as countries or states go. All right. Life expectancy about 35. Okay. Stage 2 is receding pandemics. When you see a pandemic that you're able to fight. And the big thing is going back historically back in time is Black Plague and bubonic plague. The next thing is degenerative man-made diseases. This is where your stage 3 countries kind of like we go back up here, we can go to Morocco, somewhere like that. You may see them. They're not dying of pandemics or any type of disease. They just tend to get older and die from age. All right, and then something delayed. And then stage 4 is what you see most of your more developed countries in. They're able to stop or delay those degenerative diseases like heart disease, cancer, because they have prevented things put in place. And then the last stage is, it's not represented on this chart, but it's basically there's a virus or disease that evolves to a point we cannot cure it or stop it. And so the big question in my class obviously is, hey, how about COVID-19? No, because our bodies are actually able to fight it. If you look at the numbers behind COVID-19, a lot of people are getting it, but a lot of people are fighting it too. So their bodies, I think my wife had it back in June. We weren't even in school, and and my body didn't contact it or anything like that. I've not even had it. But being in close contact with my wife, I never got it. But she was sick for like maybe 3 days. She tested positive, and then that was, like I said, back in June. We weren't even in school, And so now, I mean, she's fine. No problem. So this big thing about here goes back to our Thomas Malthus. He believes that we're going to run out of food. All right. Those are invariable. It's inevitable, right? This is Thanos. It says it's inevitable. And I give you a lady by the name of Bozrip, who's like your Iron Man or Hulk, right? That they're going to save the world because we're able to change anything. Okay. Then you had the Neo-Malthusian group. This is the global overpopulation will lead to depletion of non-renewable resources. This is our new Malthus because of non-renewable resources. His was based on food. These are based on non-renewable resources. Causes of migration. I think you guys are pretty good on this, okay? Push and pull factors. I never have anyone have an issue with that. The biggest thing is interregional migration from one region to another within the same country. And intra-regional migration is within the same region, within the same country, okay? Intervening obstacle, things that get in the way, opportunity that comes along the way. You have forced migration, tends to be something like a slavery type deal. You could do the Native Americans being moved out west, displaced or internally displaced, just being moved. It could be for many different reasons. And refugees seeking asylum. These tend to be seeking asylum means that they're a refugee is someone who's running from something from their government. They're seeking asylum in another country to help them out. Ravenstein's laws. This kind of breaks you down as far as why people move. Okay, most people travel short distance. The world moves from a rural to an urban. Okay. The world, okay, moves from basically the countryside, okay, and I use that loosely, it's a rural area, to an urban area, to a city, okay. The U.S. is probably the only backwards country when it comes to that. Most people in here go from urban to suburban in the United States, okay. We're the only country that does that, all right. When you migrate, you tend to go who travel far distance are usually to large cities, and they tend to be males from the age of 20 to 40, okay, who are single, okay, and most women migrate home, okay. So what are some effects of originating country? When the country that they leave, you get brain drain, overpopulation, change in dependency ratio, lower unemployment rates. Some good things are also going to be, they're going to send remittances to their country, and that kind of helps out too. Remittance, obviously, the people sending money. Receiving country is going to have a culture shock. We'll get some cultural changes. Money leaving due to remittance, conflicts with native people, which is kind of where we'll see some sort of racism put in place, or ethnic or racism as well. Policies will be changed, and you'll see a lot lower unemployment in those areas. Okay. Unit 3, cultural patterns and processes. Culture, folk versus pop. I think you guys are really good on that. Habit is an act that's repetitive from people daily basis. Custom is a repetitive act of a group. This is a repetitive act of a person on a daily basis. And then pop culture, time to time, focus, place to place. And this kind of gives you here. This is the effects on the cultural landscape. All right. Cultural landscape, combination of physical features, agriculture, industrial practices, and things along that nature. So hopefully you'll go back and take a moment to do that. Remember your types of diffusion. You got relocation diffusion. Okay, this is basically a movement. These are types of expansion diffusion, right? Contagious is just basically a simple spreading. All right, so it starts in the middle and just spreads evenly. It doesn't care who it comes in contact with. Hierarchical diffusion goes from a power of a node and goes from one place to another. You can have reverse hierarchical diffusion as well. That goes from a lower area to up towards higher powers. Okay, and then stimulus diffusion. This is just our remix, right? The word smartphone is an iPhone. It could be an Android, and some of those other ones. Okay, and then language. We talked about language. Just understand, I'd say this tree is probably one of the more understanding is when you look at the map that you have on one of the other PowerPoints, and just kind of knowing, hey, we're talking Indo-European, so we're talking basically from India up to the Middle East, to parts of Europe, all the way over to the Americas is where you start seeing the spread of these languages, okay? Lingua franca is for business, and the official language is language of the government. Standard language is one that most people tend to speak, all right? And then we look at religion. For religion, understanding the word universalizing versus ethnic. Universalizing religions seek to convert. The hearth calendar based on events in the religion, usually by the founder. Okay, ethnic religions tend to not seek to convert unknown hearth calendar based on lunar events, and these are kind of breaking them down for you. Okay, as well. So we're looking at where we're at, how they move from place to place is our biggest thing, and this kind of gives you diffusions, hearths, right? Judaism, remember, that's one of the very few that is an ethnic religion, but we do tend to know the hearth, all right? So they do. This one tends to be an outlier, all right? Political, political government, state, and I made this one a little bit longer because that's the current unit we're in. So state, sovereign, recognized by other states around us. I'm not going to go into this part right here because we're kind of in this unit. I'll give you really quick, okay? States of shapes, right? We should understand that. Physical boundaries we've done. Geometric boundaries, something along a latitude. And these are types of boundaries. This is actually straight from your book. I cut this out of there and put it in here because I think it's a really good one. All right. The functions of boundaries: defined, delimited, demarcated. Remember, you got to define the area. You got to draw lines, and then you got to put something in there to show the separation. Internal boundaries can be placed for many reasons. Voting districts. Remember, every 10 years we redo our districts because of census. And so there you go. So we should be doing a redistricting here in the next year, 2 years. And you got gerrymandering. That's where you draw the lines. Remember, states are organized for governments. You have a unitary, which is central government. Federal power is where the local government. All right. The word devolution, the transfer of political power from central government to a subnational levels. Devolution is what happened to USSR when it became Russia, and all these outlying pockets that it couldn't really control started having their own political power, and eventually led to Balkanization. Okay, you might see that in Yugoslavia as well. Political autonomy, we talk about nation state, stateless nation. Think about the Kurds. They don't have therefore have no sovereignty or many states. It's part of the former Soviet Union. Okay. Why do states supranational organizations? You guys just did your chart on that, so understanding those, wondering why those states start to cooperate. Well, the biggest reason is usually some sort of military alignments, economic cooperation along those lines. And then this gives you kind of an idea of where all these are. So quick overview: European Union kind of assembled 2004. You really started going with 10 new members joining. The reason is obviously to give some sort of unification throughout Europe. Unfortunately, you did see the exit, or the Brexit as it's called, of the UK, Great Britain. And the biggest reason is because this area right here, all right, this area right here became a shatter belt. Okay, because France with democracy, and over here at one point was communism. They were kind of pushing against each other. So these guys kind of got put in the middle, became that shatter belt region. Okay. And this is just telling the United Nations they're here to obviously be the peacekeepers, 193 members. Unfortunately, they really don't have much power. We'll talk about it. Then you have OPEC, oil producing. They're just kind of make sure the oil reserve. They don't really negotiate price. This is your oil map. North NAFTA, which is really no longer, so you really don't need to know NAFTA. Okay. NATO, Atlantic Treaty Organization, this was put in place. NATO and the Warsaw Pact were kind of the ones after World War II. Okay. And then you see a lot of the trading blocs. African Union, they're put in to help decolonization of Africa, because the Berlin Conference colonized it and split it up, but the African Union was there to help decolonize it and obviously create more sovereignty. So when you guys were reading the article about the third scramble for Africa, this is kind of what it was about. It's decolonization, ending apartheid, promote their development in the continent. And obviously, when you were reading Scramble for Africa, the third, it talked a little bit about the fact that, hey, look, here's the deal. Africa has now the ability to inject more, and they have more say in what's going on as opposed to when they were colonized. Arab League, when independence, And you're seeing some of this now, economic development, cooperation, culture changes. So the Arab League is really out there. And one of the big things you can see over the last couple of years is women, the ability just to drive. One thing about supranational organizations, though they do have a great deal of help, some of the things they do not have is they do not have the ability to enforce anything that they say, because the sovereign nations actually give them the power. They do not or cannot enforce anything, and when they do try to enforce it, it takes so long to enforce anything that they're doing. Right, so because of the fact it takes so long to enforce, we look at an idea of what are we doing. Some good examples of that with the United Nations is, though they're the peacekeepers, they tend to take too long to react. And a good example is Rwanda. During the genocide in Rwanda, by the time the United Nations was able to react or help out, the genocide was actually over. Okay. Why do they cause problems? We talk about boundaries of the United States, create legislative districts. So we talked about electoral geography. I gave you that. Devolution, I gave you that, act by which power essential gives up property. I'm not going to go into that again. All right. And one more thing I want to do real quick. Let me find it. And somebody does have a question. Why are you not pulling up? There we go. Okay. All right, guys, I'm back. You guys see me now? All right. I'm going to go up here and read some of the questions, okay? So try opening up the PDF. I just see you. I don't see the PDF. Sorry. Can you mute yourself? What do each of the three types of densities tell us? As far as, so the three types of densities tell you, one tells you how many people are on the type of land. So the density will tell you, is it an urban space? Is it a rural space? Okay, I'm gonna go through all these questions that you guys put while I was talking about that. All right, the arithmetic density tells you people on arable land, how many people are. So that gives you a good idea of how many people are in an area. It could tell you about carrying capacity. Then the next one talks about physiological, which gives you the amount of people on arable land. So how much, then you get a better idea of carrying capacity, because the arable land is what we're going to need to actually grow things. Okay. So can that area actually sustain a person, or are we going to have to bring things in? Are we going to have to really be a trading block of some sort? That's what physiological can tell you. And then the last one, which is agricultural density, is going to give you a really good idea of how many farmers you have. Okay. If you have very little farmers, but you produce a lot of food, you're probably a more developed country. Like the United States, we have arable land. We have very few farmers per square meter. Okay. All right. I don't really understand the gerrymandering concept. Can you explain it, please? Yeah. So gerrymandering, what gerrymandering is, let's say you have a square. Okay. So if we have this square area, let me do it on a piece of paper. Hold on. Okay. So bear with me, okay, as I do this. All right. We'll go old school. So you have these four squares, all right, and in those four squares, they're voting blocks, all right. All right. So here's your four squares, and right now it looks like the letter C is going to win, okay? All right, based on these three voting districts that we have right here. 1, 2, 3. So we're trying to get B to win this whole thing. So what happens is they will change these voting districts in order to let B win, all right? And what that may look like is, they may change the voting districts to look something like I just drew. So B would now win in this district down here. I'm sorry. So now now we're going to change 3 districts into 2 districts in order to allow B to win in these districts. We'd add more Bs in here in order to get our winner. So that's what gerrymandering is. Okay? We're just basically changing our district lines in order to meet our needs as a politician. Okay? It is illegal. No, you don't need to know USMCA. Will we also need to know about the Commonwealth? Nope. The shape of states. You want to go back into the shape of states, Molly? Okay, so let me pull this back up. So let me just put a little note here, shape of states, and we'll go back to that really quick, okay? Will the unit be currently learning be in, will the unit be, we're actually learning be in the midterm? Guys, yeah, remember, it's 80% unit 4. That's why I did more of that on that unit. And 20% will be from units 1, 2, 3. Okay. I have one more message and I'm going to. Could you explain balkanization? So balkanization is basically a process by which let's talk about Yugoslavia was originally put in place to be 6 ethnic areas. Okay. And they kind of put them together because to create Yugoslavia because they all spoke the same common language. All right. But over time, each ethnicity became kind of its own little area within there. And so they decided they wanted to split up into their own ethnic groups. Okay. So it's ethnicities within a common state. They usually have something in common, but because of their ethnic beliefs or ethnic culture, they end up splitting up and becoming their own states. So Yugoslavia actually turned into 6 different states. Okay. The USSR is another example of one that no longer exists. Obviously, USSR doesn't exist. You have Russia, and then you have the other 14 other states that were created from Russia. So 15 total because of ethnic differences. Okay. The demographic transition model. So the only difference between the demographic transition model and the epidemiological transition model is the epidemiological transition model is based on the health, okay, based on diseases, all right, pandemics receding and all those, but each one coincides because of the fact you do end up with less, so looking at death rates. Because of the epidemiological transition talks about pandemics, so we actually keep higher death rates, people are still dying pretty quick, not living as long. We recede pandemics, people start to live longer, then they're able to live long enough to gain these man-made diseases like heart disease and stuff like that, and then we're able to delay them in stage 4 because we have like cancer screenings, heart screenings, physicals and stuff like that. So that's the biggest difference between them. All right, let's see if there's any more. All right. In AP Classroom, there were progress checks that say that they were due yesterday. Will this receive a penalty? Also, can you please reopen it so I can do those AP Classrooms? I'll reopen them. They're progress checks, but I'm not grading them. So I'll reopen them for you, no big deal. So you can do that before you actually take the test. So let me make myself a note to that, okay? AP class, reopen. And remember, there is no FRQ this time. Between a state, a nation, and a country. Okay, a country and a state are the same thing. A nation is basically an ethnicity, okay? All right, so a state is something that's been recognized by the UN, by the people around it. It has a permanent government, permanent settlement, people, and it's been recognized by the United Nations. Okay, and a nation is basically a group of an ethnicity. So we talk about the word nation state, okay, which is like Iceland. And Japan is a good example of a nation state that the ethnicity is also the same as the state. Most countries around are multinational states, okay, meaning they have multi-nations. Okay, so the word nation is an ethnicity, okay, all right, and a country is the same thing as a state. State and a country are basically, we see those terms intertwined, all right. Does that answer the question? Cool. All right, so then the last one is shapes of states. Let me pull up. One thing I do want to go over for you real quick, if I can get this up. Uh-oh, the wrong button. Let me go to You shouldn't be able to see me, so it's not a big deal. All right, so now you guys should see the law of the sea, right?
Yes.
I forgot to share my face, but that's okay. I wouldn't want to see my face. Anyway, so the law of the sea. So let me go that really quick. Okay, the United Nations came up with these laws to establish 4 zones within the sea. Okay, so it tells you how much you have. So how much you have in a country. Okay, so let's say you have, all right, the territorial sea. These are 12 nautical miles. Okay, so it's basically sovereign. Right, commercial vessels may pass, but government vessels may be challenged. Okay, so what that means is you have up to 12 nautical miles. All right, we're talking about from your coast that commercial vessels, okay, can go do whatever. But as far as government vessels, you need to be beyond that. Okay, that means you kind of control that. Then you have the contiguous zone. Okay, coastal states limit sovereignty for up to 24 miles. So within 24 miles, a country can enforce the laws on customs, immigration, and sanitation. So what we're talking about is they can say, hey, we're going to tax you. All right. Then you have the EE zone. Coastal states can explore, extract minerals, or manage up to 200 nautical miles. So they can actually up to that point. All right. So up to that point, if you have 201 nautical miles, it becomes high seas, and anybody can go out there. Okay, it's open to all states, but you have up to 200 miles where you can actually have minerals or manage and explore. Okay, and what they're doing there is trying to prevent people from, um, getting into fights. So if the vertical plane determines airspace, subterranean borders on land, how do we deal with borders at sea? All right, so all right, borders can be addressed systematically. It depends on who they are. All right. And so what that means is, so if 2 countries kind of come together and 2 coastline states are less than 24 nautical miles, you split the difference. Okay. So if you're 200, so if you have like 150 miles between you and another country, you're gonna split the difference on all of those. Okay. Does that make sense? So if it's 150, then you go 75 nautical miles, and there's really no open sea. Okay. So we will split differences. If a coastal state has islands, all right, the U.S. has high water rights far out the Bering Sea, Alaska, for example. All right, so we get all the way, we get 200 miles from California and then 200 miles around Hawaii. Okay. Obviously, we looked at this stuff. If you look at wars are fought because people are within these areas, and we go all the way back to the sinking of Lusitania, right? Was a big deal because they thought it was within their areas. And these kind of give you some other ideas that we just talked about. So the maritime, all right. All right, so I'm going to go out of that, go back to here. All right, you guys see me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Are there any questions up to that point? Again, you guys can go back and watch this again, slow it down, go back and listen to things. Like I said, you should be pretty well versed on all of this stuff. Oh, wait, one more person. Someone asked me to redo something for them real quick. Make sure I do that. Where did you go? Sorry, guys, I forgot about this last thing someone asked. Okay. You guys should see these 5 basic shapes again. So 5 basic shapes that someone asked about, right? A compact state tends to be one where it's basically the center is almost equidistant to everything around it. Kenya is a good example of that. An elongated state is like Gambia. Chile is a good, it's really a long state as far as area wise. That's hard to govern. So a good example is Gambia and Chile. Okay. A prorupted state means that, I give you the state of Florida as a good example, but if you go towards Namibia, okay, where it kind of, and I don't know how to draw it, but it has this little almost handle for a pan. Okay, that's the proruption, right? And a lot of times the proruptions are there for needing access to some sort of resource. It could be a buffer zone. It could be many other reasons, but there's usually a proruption. We have our pro-ruption, if we look throughout the United States, a lot of people look at Florida, goes up, it has a panhandle, that's your pro-ruption. Okay. A perforated state, South Africa and Italy are the only two perforated states around. Okay. They have a state within them that they completely surround. All right. Then a fragmented state is a state that has other areas that are separated by land or water. We are a fragmented state because we have Alaska and Hawaii. All right. All right. Back to me. Any questions? Does that help? Don't need to know about packing and stacking. Will the law of the sea be on the midterm? It was on your reading guide, so you might see a couple questions about the law of the sea on there. Yes. Okay. Anything that's on those reading guides, even if I don't go over them, that's why I do the reading guides, because of our limited time together. Okay. The reading guides basically take care of everything. Someone even asked, why don't you do more vocab tests? I think it helps me. Well, vocab is in the back of the book, so you can go memorize those, but they're also going to be straight out of your reading guide as well. Okay. All right, guys. Any last questions you have?
Mr. Weber, I have a question.
Okay, who is this?
This is Ria.
What's up, Ria?
So I had asked a question about the gerrymandering, but at that time, I wasn't able to see you at all. So if you were drawing anything, I couldn't see at all. So would you mind explaining it again?
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so let me answer these other ones while I'm doing that. Okay. I'll draw my amazing, because I am a great artist. Not really. I'm terrible. Each branch of the tree picture on unit 1 through 5. What is each branch of the tree picture? Oh, no. All you need to know is understand the basics of the tree. No, you don't need to know each branch. That would be really tough to know each branch, like each language. No, basically we're looking at the horse and how it diffuses from one place to another. That's the biggest thing. Sorry, guys, I'm drawing this in here. All right, so here we go. So what I drew right there is you got right now here, okay? We have 4 individual regions. And if we took a vote right now, and so our goal is to get B elected, okay? So right now, looks like C would win here, C would win here, C would win here, but B would win here. So what we'd do is we would redraw these district lines in order to make sure that B wins, okay? So I'm gonna redraw them real quick. All right, so let's do this. All right, so what I did is I redrew the lines, okay? So if you look at this right here, all right, let me make sure I got this. So now we have 4 regions still. B wins this one, B wins this one, C will win this one, but B will win this. So the score will now be 3-1 in favor of B. So B would win this electorate. So I've redrawn the district lines to accommodate B winning. All right, I gave C 1 area, but I put all the C's together so they only get 1 vote. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, the midterm. Imperialization and colonization. So imperialization is taking by force. Colonization is just basically showing up. Okay. Can you go over new and old imperialism? So I guess you could say more as far as imperialization, new and old. Today, you don't see really imperialization. If you do, it's more economically that we're going to take areas over, or people are going to take areas over. We'll get into a lot of that new imperialization, the actual what it looks like. It tends to be a supranational organization. I'm sorry, a transnational corporation going into an area. Okay, it doesn't look like we're going to take by force. We're going to take probably more economically. The old way was to go in there to take by force, and that was imperialization. If you look at a new imperialization today, it's more economically, where a transnational corporation will go into those areas. Is nationalism an acting thing? Like imperialism, just a love for nationalism is a love for your country. That's it. You know, the flag and all that stuff. Okay. Any more questions, guys? These are great. These are great questions. Cool. Like I said, a couple of you have already taken it without getting a review, so they've gotten the scores go anywhere from 72 to 91, which is a good idea. So I'm not getting the 98s and not getting the hundreds anymore. That just tells me that this is going to be a little bit tougher for you guys, which is better. Okay. Not that it's tougher, but you guys are getting a true sense of taking a test. Again, there's like 100 questions, and you're only going to get 60 of them in a random pattern. No, you don't need to know about all the scrambles for Africa. What I did was that's to give you a lot of times the articles I give you are to give you a perspective, but what you want to understand with the scrambles for Africa is that it helped draw the lines. But when we look at today, okay, looking at today's scramble for Africa is going to really help us when we get to agriculture and we understand how transnational corporations are moving into Africa, all right, and how Africa is going out of the demographic transition model because of the scramble for Africa and people moving in there and basically injecting more into the economy and the African people being allowed to, I guess you could say, interject or have their voice in it. So that's the big thing. And it's just going to help you get a bigger perspective. Remember, the big thing is, all right, the big thing is that we understand, hey, how's it going in our future as well? Yes, there's a curve on the midterm. Anything else? So the big thing with NAFTA, NAFTA was set to expire, and so they took it out of the CED, which is your basically your standards, last year. And so now it's more of a trade organization. We still have some of the same things put in place, and Trump kind of updated it to make it more beneficial for the United States, but we still have some sort of a trade agreement with them. As far as the name goes, I can't remember the exact name that they changed it to. So give me I can help you out though. So that's that USMCA, sorry. Yeah. I did know that. Sorry. I'm just losing blank. So it's just changed it, and they're still updating, doing some things. So we'll and you can go over, I can send you a link if you want to go over. So a lot of things that it does, you know, manufacturing's been changed. And a lot of the stuff that he did when he changed that was to build more incentives for people to do more manufacturing in the United States. Okay. Manufacturing changed labor laws with Mexico, so we are not taking advantage of them as much, but moving a lot of manufacturing back to the United States because we are the country that sells everything but builds nothing. So those are some of the things that were put in place in this USMCA. Okay, it's not, neither one of these are on the CED anymore, so we're not going to worry about it. I'm sure they're, once they get all this stuff put out with this USMCA, that they'll probably add it in within the next year. Okay. All right. Somebody needs to check their fire extinguishers or fire alerts because they're beeping. Oh, there it is again. You need some batteries to go change. Anything else, guys? I guess I'm gonna stop the recording. And
yes, I have a question.
Oh.
Can you please go over the different type of boundaries?
Did you? Hey, mute yourself, man. We can hear your fire thing beeping. Did you? Thank you. All right. Hopefully you can get some new batteries for that thing, man. Different boundaries. So you're looking at physical boundaries, okay? So it could be obviously any type of physical feature. It could be a militarized boundary, okay? That's because of some sort of a military. An ethnic boundary, okay? It could be a relic boundary, antecedent boundary. So you want to know those, right? So let me pull up my PowerPoint on that. I think it's just easier if you actually see it. So let me go here. Let me find, hold on, guys. And we go here. All right, you guys, you can see boundaries?
Yes.
All right, antecedent. So this is actually straight from your book. If you want to, I'm not telling you to do this, but I think it's a pretty good idea. So as you're taking this, you know, you might as well open up to this page and have it ready for you. Let me find the exact page it's on. I think it's like 130 something, 158 in your book. So that's where this is straight from. So it gives you that good idea. An antecedent boundary. This is drawn. This is a boundary drawn before a large population was present. Okay, so this is just based on population. So like Canada, the United States is your good example on that one. Okay. A subsequent boundary. I don't like this subsequent boundary right here, and I'll tell you why. Okay, boundary drawn to accommodate religious lines. This is drawn after. Okay, subsequent boundaries are drawn after. Okay, a religious, ethnic, linguistic, or economic differences occur. Okay, subsequent boundary would be Pakistan and India. Okay, that was drawn after. All right. Now, a consequent boundary is something that was drawn before, okay, because of some sort of a physical feature. Ireland, okay, all right, tends to be a consequent boundary, right? A boundary between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. This is our consequent boundary. A relic boundary is something that's old, that's no longer there. East and West Germany, Vietnam, those are there. Superimposed, drawn by outside boundaries. So superimposed is your Berlin Conference, okay? Militarized, North and South Korea, okay? You have an open boundary where crossing is unimpeded, European. You also have relic boundaries. Obviously, we just did that, all right? You got, does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. Ireland considered nation state, yes. It's moving a lot towards multinationalism. A lot of the countries, they're going to be very, as we continue globalization, you're going to come to a point where you're going to find very little nation states, okay? Because everybody is becoming more multinational, okay? Most states are multinational. Is that it? All right, guys. We've had a long call. I hope that helped everyone. I'm going to